taking care of before we leave. I just want to hear how Sean's.
He's doing really well.
Oh,
He's back home, he's back to work.
oh, wonderful.
He's gonna need surgery probably March or April, but he's holding his own. Thank you for asking.
Right.
Hey, where's it at? I don't know.
Right up the stairs.
Well, it has been a long time since you've been here.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
How about the steps on the left?
I just caught on what you said.
Some more coffee. Anybody need anything?
You can't go with me there.
Yeah, you saw the picture?
Yeah.
And it's about 2 days ago. And I can't, what is that? It was paper all over the house, a whole roll. It had to be a, it couldn't be one day of you.
Just do a quick introduction. There's a PMP.
Okay. Sure, go ahead.
It was a little strange. Andy Warren come in. Do you know he was coming?
No.
It was really weird. I hate to be unkind, but
You all right? Yeah. You could be a little follower. Perfect. Good. I think that was good.
Yeah, perfect.
I'm a problem solver. There you go.
Anywhere you like.
Hey, Derek, you have us? No, this is United. Yes, but.
What time does the flight take off?
Yeah, what time?
Woo!
You see what that is? I see.
Hello, Carol.
how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Goodbye, you can put my mask back on. All right.
Right, because we're eating and drinking ourselves.
All right.
So the mask goes like this. I always have my coffee. This is from somebody.
You know, I just got a Camelback and typical, like I'll fill my water bottle in my Valentine. So with one of the laundry and then the paper and then. So my granddaughter had a Camelback. And I couldn't find the lid, so I put water in it. I was ready to my Valentine. It was still as cold. As it was without the lid on it. It was, and then, so I went for one for myself. And I left the water bottle. I ride. And then they are 24 hours.
I don't want to see.
That one had the lid on.
I want to.
I need to slow down, slow down.
So you might help reach out to I got something going on.
Okay.
Louise?
Oh.
First of the holidays. Done
holiday goals.
Everybody, you don't get stuff. That's
Santa Claus don't come in the house anymore. Done. It's just me. That's an already to do.
Second. Public meeting. So I might.
Okay. Please find a seat. As we start our committee reports, I want to say a special thank you to Christina and the foundation team for a wonderful reception last night. Thank you to the trustees who attended that. It was a great event, and food was good. The fellowship was good, and your speech was very good as well. So thank you for that.
Excellent.
With that, do you want to introduce our special guests first?
Yes. Board members and members of the Bucks County community here, I'd like to introduce Mr. Anthony Assey. Mr. Assey is serving as our financial consultant as we transition from our retiring chief financial officer into an interim structure. And he will be available after our meetings today, if any of you would like to meet him or to understand what he is doing over the course of this past week. Our board secretary, Kathy, can facilitate questions with any of you if you so choose. But I just wanted to introduce Anthony Assey and let you know that he's here, and he's been meeting with all of the pertinent individuals and being a support in the transition. And then also wanted to acknowledge CFO Matthews. This is his last Board of Trustees meeting. So we will have a reception for him on the 21st. So we will send out an announcement for you to join. It'll be a breakfast for him. And I want to acknowledge Dave Jurden. Dave Jurden this is his last meeting as AVP. And come January, he will be our interim chief financial officer for the next 18 months. So acknowledge that transition, and again, Mr. Assey is here to help us with that transition.
Great, thank you. Anthony, it's great to have you on board. Dennis, sad to see you depart after so many years. How many years has it been now?
January, 16 years.
16? Yeah, well, we'll have a chance to celebrate with you on the 21st. And David, congratulations.
Time on the 21st?
I believe it's 8:30. 8:30.
I'll send something else.
With that, we are going to move into our committee reports. Let's start with our Student Affairs and Student Engagement Committee. And I would like to ask Dr. Brodus.
Yes, we have Mr. Nicholas Barubi and Latifah.
I'm sorry. I did have the wrong agenda. We'll start with our academic affairs and work.
Calm down now, Boris.
Excuse me. We'll start with our academic affairs and workforce committee. And I'll ask Ms. Shelley to introduce.
I wondered, I thought I got booted without my knowledge. Although Dr. Broadus would be a great replacement, obviously.
Amazing how prepared he was to go.
So we're going to discuss first the middle state standard for Dr. Kellaway, please.
Chairman, President Ganther. Hello again. I'm here for the next part of our continuing lecture series on the middle states and the college operations. You'll notice we jumped past standard 3, and the reason that we had done that is we have given the board information on standards 3 and 5 in the prior season. That presentation was given by Dr. Blaine McCarthy with all sorts of facts and figures about our educational programs and their delivery. What my intention is to the month right before our middle states peer accreditors visit us, I would like to have the opportunity to do an overall review, and at that point I'll return to standards 3 and 5 to freshen up in your mind what constitutes those criteria and where we are with some of the newer projects related to those chapters. So anyway, so I guess this work. Oh, there. Okay, awesome. So standard 4 touches upon all the various areas of the institution that support the student experience outside of the classroom. So in the main, what our accreditors are looking for are the ways in which we recruit students, how we bring them on board, how we make sure that they are prepared, and how we get them to their goals. So if our academic offerings and programs are the sort of highways and roads, if you will, for our students' journeys, the rest of this is sort of the signposts, the tow trucks, the AAA phone calls, the turnpike emergency vehicles, if you will, to help them continue their journey. So with that said, it covers quite a lot. I actually did have the opportunity to be the lead peer evaluator at a very large institution on this standard, and it is quite comprehensive. The criteria for this standard, and as you remember, each standard has that set of very specific criteria that we must comply with. Firstly, pays attention to our policies and procedures in recruitment, in admission, in clarifying financial aid and fiscal responsibility for our students, and how we ensure their success. So specifically, they want to see the copious amount of public-facing and easily accessible information on our website, for example, about expenses and about how to apply for financial aid and all the assistance that we provide, the tremendous amount of scholarship we have available, and so forth. They want to have a very clear understanding about how we ensure our students are prepared for college level learning. So what are our placement test policies? What do they look like? What are we doing with students who come in and are not ready for college level coursework? Our developmental courses, programs, support apparatus, and so forth for those students. How are we guiding students and keeping them on their journey? What does our counseling look like? What are our accessibility options and supports, for example? And how do we ensure that they achieve those goals? Are we making sure that we are keeping them on task? Are we making sure that we do everything we can do to shorten any unnecessary time to completion for our students? Are we very clear with how we accept transfer credit and the concomitant acceptance of our own credits with our transfer institutions? Do we have plans and processes in place to afford students credit for prior learning or non-academic learning, what we call prior learning assessment? Do we keep our students' information secure? I think we're all familiar with FERPA and the complexities therein, and how else do we ensure the security of our students' information? All of our extracurricular activities, all of the student clubs and organizations, athletics, and those sorts of things. How do we manage those? What are the protocols in place? Are they appropriately administered? And then finally, if we do have third-party services and providers of some of these student supports, and we do, our bookstore and our food services, for example, do we ensure that they meet the same sorts of standards, and do we afford them the same care and attention that we do for our in-house services? So that's everything that we need to explain to them in this one.
That's all.
That's it. That was short. Doesn't like that. There we go. So, as you might imagine, what parts of the college are involved? Everything that isn't a classroom activity, admissions, registration, financial aid, as I said, all our testing, the entirety of our developmental education apparatus, not necessarily developmental education courses themselves, but for example, we have a significant amount of explanation in that chapter about the holistic placement program, which you may have heard of a few years ago when we first implemented it as a pilot. And that is a means to better place students. Data will tell us, and research shows that placement testing in and of itself is not highly effective in placing students correctly. It's a one-shot, high-stakes assessment, and oftentimes students come in and they go through their admissions and onboarding, and now take this math test, and they're done. So they don't perform well, they're placed incorrectly, they unnecessarily have a hurdle or a burden in achieving that goal. So we've come up with some different things along the way: advising, career, food services, counseling, soup to nuts. Now it's what's next. I encourage you to review the chapter if you have not, for specific details about all those offices and offerings and what we've been up to lately with them. There's a lot of content in there. But I thought what might be more useful to call out for you is some of the results, if you will, of some of these supports. One of the ways to sort of look at, well, how are these various programs and offerings and departments doing, is to sort of look at the goals relevant to the chapter. So for example, one of the things we like to call out in this chapter is our fall to fall retention has been on a consistent upward trend. For part-time students, it's gone from 42% students return fall to fall, now to 52% since the last self-study. Full-time students, 63% since the last self-study, now 67%. And by the way, those numbers are above national standards to begin with. We can always be better. I'm sure I'm not the only one in this room who would say confidently, I won't be satisfied until all of these success numbers say 100. Our holistic placement process, as I mentioned, before we had it in place, fall 2011, 71% of our entering freshmen tested requiring developmental education. Not good. Not good, and as I have said, the research will tell you, not an accurate indicator of developmental need. Now with holistic placement in place, fall 21, we're down to 38%. Much diminished developmental need. And as you will note in the chapter, if you look at the studies we've done of holistic placement, the students who are holistically placed consistently perform better in their course of placement than students who have used the placement test. So it is working, and it's shortening time to completion. Our students are attaining their goals. Our recent first-time, full-time, 3-year transfer rate of 23%. Not as high as I would like it, but it is higher significantly than the median for this state, and much higher than the national median. Could it be better? Absolutely. Are we continuing to work on these things? You bet. Career placement rate, the best we can do in terms of getting this data, it's very hard to get hold of these students. Within a few months of completion of more career-oriented programs, about 65% of the students indicate that they are working in that field of study, which is pretty good. I would wish we could get better longer-term information. I think you would find that number was even higher. We have implemented any number of very successful programmatic and policy changes since the last self-study. You've heard about many of them, our mandatory advisor model. We have stopped students registering late after the semester starts. Research will show you students who register late do not succeed as a group, so we have stopped that. We have mandatory new student orientation and moved to an online modality, very successful. And of course, our first year experience, which we call Call 101. There's a number of other things as well that I have recently spoke to you about over the last couple of years of focus on current student retention with our care team, addressing non-academic barriers to success, Bucks Plus, working on student engagement. There have been so many things that we have implemented since the last self-study. And I think we can show confidently consistent improvement over time since then in these key student success measures. So key takeaways for the board, I'm very confident that our peer evaluators will find that our support for students outside the classroom is very strong. Initiatives, programs, new things that we've implemented are showing some very positive results. We have a suggestion for ourselves moving forward, and that is, of course, to assess the impact of the student information side of Workday on these items. I'm particularly excited about the potentiality to have more easily accessible predictive and performance reporting. It's one of the things that we have had missing is the ability to have a closer to a real-time understanding of student success parameters, the ability to highlight key moments in a student's journey, for example, across the course of a semester, to get more consistent early alert information, and to be able to deploy our professional advisors the sooner the better to provide a necessary intervention. So that's the big one we're looking for moving forward. There was currently in the draft that you were circulated another suggestion for ourselves that had to do with any advice that we were going to get from our strategic enrollment consultants. We have, in the latest version of the self-studies, moved that suggestion onto standard 6, which is a more appropriate suggestion to come from standard 6 because of the content. And when I get to that chapter, I think you'll see why. That's the chewy nougat of this chapter. Do you have any questions?
I just have a comment. I'm amazed again at the level of the depth of information, and I think it's very positive, and I appreciate it. So, does anybody else have any other questions, comments?
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Coleman. We're going to move on to new programs of study with Lisa Angelo.
We had 3 new programs of study go through our committee structure and approved by our advisory council and the president. We're bringing them to you today. They will be part of our curriculum report in June, but I'm bringing them to you today for approval so that we can get them into the new catalog and that our students are able to know about the new programs and declare them as their major before our advising registration start in March. And in order for these to be on the books in February, when we start advising and registration. And there are 3 new programs: our Culinary Arts Associate of Arts degree and a Baking and Pastry Arts Associate degree. These are going to replace the current chef apprenticeship program that hadn't been revised for a very long time. The new program does have an apprenticeship option, but it's not required. And this will help to reduce the time to completion for our culinary students. And we also have an entrepreneurship certificate, which is for provides the foundation for students who want to start their own business. And it also is a stackable credential into our AAS business degree. So those are the 3 new programs we're asking for your approval, and I believe they'll be on the consent agenda. Any questions? Yeah.
Entrepreneurial certificate aligned with the culinary.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's something.
Yeah, the 2 that are replacing the culinary the chef apprenticeship program are 2 separate degrees, one for bakery, one for culinary arts, and then a separate certificate happens also to be in the business department, entrepreneurship certificate.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, that's it.
Thank you, Ms. Shelley. We will now move into the Finance and Operations Committee reports. Ms. Menhertz.
Okay, first I'd like to introduce Mr. Steve to the update on Workday.
Mr. Chair, President Ganther, trustees. Just here to give an update on where we are with the Workday student implementation. Just as a reminder, Workday is really providing 2 things for us after we purchased them. One side is sort of the HCM finance payroll, and we're referring to as ERP. We finished that implementation as we are running our business on it. There's always some things that we're working on here and there with it, but overall we are no longer using our old system. We're on the new one. We're on Workday running. What we're working on now is the student side of things, student information system. You'll hear me refer to it as student or student information system, or SIS for that matter. They're all kind of the same thing. Just a reminder of the structure. That's all. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the project status, where we are, and then we also, as we have in the past, we have a third party doing some risk assessment work for us to make sure that we're on track. So unlike when we were working with the ERP, we are using a third party company to help us implement this platform. The hearing is Alchemy, so we can refer to Alchemy. That's who they are in this mix. Overall, project is green at this point. I'm now working for about 3 months on this, plus some preamble work over the summer. Things are going well. We're meeting our deadlines. Things are good. The budget status is also good. We're in the green. We have a good chunk of money moving into the student phase, which is the more expensive phase of the 2 components. What we just finished up here is referred to as the architect stage. The very beginning of the project, we're doing a lot of requirements gathering. They're asking us how our business runs. We're trying to explain that to them. They're trying to show us the system works, back and forth, figuring out how we're going to set this thing up. And now we're moving into more of a configuration, prototyping, and testing phase. So we've told them how we run this. Obviously, as we go, we will also have a bit more things in that vein, but we've really explained to them how the business is going to run. They're helping us get that all set up in the system, and then they're going to hand it over to us, and we're going to begin testing it, seeing what's it look like day to day to actually run on this new system. It's a very iterative approach. It's going to be very good for us. We're going to be testing constantly throughout this process. The first set of functionality is going to launch on the student side in November 2022, and that's the target term of the following fall. What I mean by target term is that the first students who are really going to use this thing are going to be the people who are the quote unquote incoming class of fall 2023, right? So we're going to launch, say, the application for admissions in November of 22, but the people who will be interacting with it will be applying for fall 2023. So that's how that timeline looks. Won't go through all this, but this is just, if you want to take a look at this, I give a copy of this, just the overall timeline where some of these key dates are. The kind of 50,000-foot view is, again, we're going to work for this next year to launch the first bit of functionality. Then there's about a year time period where we launch things in kind of smaller phases all the way around, and then we're fully launched by 2023 fall, just in time for our agreement to expire with Elucian, who provides us our current system that following spring, which will help us recoup some, operational funds. Risk dashboard. So as we've done before, we had a third party do some risk assessment stuff for us. Things are good overall. You will notice that there's a yellow on the very last line here. That probably features gaps, stuff like that. That's normal in this phase of things, and they are assured by both Alchemy and the third party risk assessors that this is a normal place to be. If that stays yellow for halfway through 2022, into the summer, then it'll be a problem, or if there was such red, obviously. But what it is we're explaining how we do business. There are certain parts of the system that maybe don't immediately connect with that. We have to figure out how we're going to have the new system work for us and vice versa. It's just that exploratory phase of things. As you'll see on the next piece here, some positives come out of this, as much as there are some gaps that we're identifying here and there. We've also found a lot of efficiencies. We're seeing places already that our people are going to find much more efficient, and which will cut down on in-house, staff, labor time, busy work kind of stuff, that we'll be able to automate right through in a workday, which is really good news. We're already seeing that now, and we're sure there's more to come. Our team likes the implementers. They respect us, and we respect them back and forth. It's really good. And we're in a pretty good spot, moving into this next phase of things. Things that we're keeping an eye on. There are some workloads in certain specific areas that are very high, and we're trying to do everything we can to manage both their day-to-day responsibilities, help backfill them in certain spots, and make sure the project doesn't derail. We don't want to end up with change orders and extra charges and all that kind of stuff. So we're keeping a very close eye on that. Another piece to point out, it says something here about resistance to change. That's not so much resistance to change of the way that you might think about it. It has more to do with just, we've done business for quite a while, and it's not resisting the change. It's almost trying to reimagine how things are going to go. And that's going very well for us overall. But it's something we're just keeping an eye on it to make sure we don't bump into any walls along the way. There's a lot of integrations. We're integrating almost 80 different integration points into Workday. Keep very close eye on those. But a number of things that we're just keeping a close eye on to make sure they don't derail anything. As mentioned on the slide before, everything is green at this point. We just want to make sure it stays that way. That's really what this is about. And finally, there we go. The financials of this. Again, we're in a good spot. We have the money we expect to going into this phase of the project. Of the almost $8 million for this project, we've spent about 4.5 so far. That's including a 50% upfront payment to Alchemy that we did about a year ago in order to save about 10% of their implementation costs. So even though the spent to date is a little bit more than half, we haven't hit all of that yet. So that's all good news there as far as the financials are concerned. And then a little worksheet that I've shown before, just in case you want to have that for your reference, where we're spending our money, where we are, with the spend. Can I answer any questions? Can I get to a question slide?
Ms. Benhart?
I have a question slide. Can I answer the question?
Just want to ask you if you're considering using part of that contingency for additional expertise, so we don't overload our staff.
Yes, that's already in the works, actually. We expect the contingency, a certain amount of it is slotted towards what we expect will be overage on our project management and risk management services. We had that expected from the beginning. It's not going to chew everything out. That's part of where we allot that money. So we know that that's coming. Another piece of it is that as we're working to backfill in certain key areas, we're going to be funding those positions about half and half is sort of the current plan. Pay for about half out of contingency, half out of operation. So we'll be holding down a certain amount of day-to-day work as well as a certain amount of project work. So that's where we're going with that right now. We don't want to burn through. My apprehension about burning through it too fast is we know that after we launch, we're going to want post-production support, which we'll use contingency on. We're doing that with the ERP part. Now, the good news on the ERP part, we used, and this is a small point of pride for the institution, I think, but we've used a small fraction of post-production support dollars compared to what Northampton used with the same company after they launched their ERP part, which to me means that our people throughout the course of the ERP learned the system to a greater extent, right? And I expect the same thing on student as well. So long story short, we're going to spend some of that contingency money after we launch because we're going to need some help once we're up and running. So we want to have enough for that. And also this phase of the project was time and materials compared to the last phase, which was flat fee. So I want to make sure that we don't run up into any pinch points there. So we're asking the institution to kind of help, about 50-50, maybe a little bit more in favor of contingency to backfill some of the stuff. But yes. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Anything else?
I just want to hear more about the 50-50.
More about it.
What do you mean in terms of the funding aspect you just mentioned?
Right, so the idea is the positions that we're hiring they're not permanent full-time roles. So we're advertising them as sort of as temporary. They are full-time, but they're temporary, right? So they're beyond some phase of a contract. Depending on how long that contract goes for and how much we spend with them, the first chunk of that money will come out of contingency.
Mhm.
And then if we hit a point where we either believe we've hit half of the contract length, or we're starting to feel pinched on the contingency side for some reason, and something were to happen, the institution is prepared to pick it up from that point, and then we would reevaluate.
So that's community college.
I'm sorry.
Community college.
Yes.
Okay. So the first 50 comes out of the bond proceeds, the contingency budget. The next 50 comes out of our operational expenses outside of the bond issuance.
Correct. Yeah.
If we get there.
If we get there, yeah. Because a lot can happen, right? Maybe it turns out we don't need them anymore and we'll let the contract expire, or any number of things. So.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, next is the audit report, and first, before Mr. Matthews gives his report, I just want to tell you that I've been in the role of stewardship for finance for the last 2 years, and Dennis Matthews is such an incredible wealth of knowledge, historical knowledge of what other organizations are doing. And I just want to thank him for all the support, all his contribution, and tell him how much he personally will be missed.
Here, here.
So with that, do you want to say anything about the audit report?
First, thank you. No, I don't have study speeches. So, thank you. I really, everybody has the audit. I really entertaining questions. I just want to make a few highlights. On paper, we had a very good year. However, as we all know, enrollment was down, and that was really backfilled by the CARES money. So theoretically, enrollment wasn't down, but it really was. And the same thing's happening this year before we face some real challenges. Everybody here at this college will be facing, trustees and all going forward. But as far as this audit goes, I really think it was a great accomplishment of my group in the workday, HR, especially Dave. I mean, they went through the conversion in the middle of this year, did the whole workday, had to take care of. We made a mistake. We didn't backfill what we probably should have early in this one. And it cost us a little bit in bodies down the road and some burnout. But so it was a lesson learned that we can't let happen for the second phase here along the way. But again, I mean, we had our stain management comment we've had for 10 years. And to me, that's really allowing the auditors to help do the financial statement, saves the body. It's kind of cheap labor almost in a way, but it still ends up with comment. But we had no workday comments. We had, there was a couple of recommendations, and we'll get that when we get the letters and all. But I just think it was a wonderful accomplishment of my team, less me, of what they accomplished throughout this year, and to really put together, first of all, a successful year from budget-wise. you know, despite the problems and how this all turned out. Is there any questions on the particular part of the audit that anybody has? You have a draft. Yeah, so.
Okay, the only follow-up I would have on the auditing function is that, because we will be, getting resumes of new audit partners, we will, still have a, preliminary audit, finance committee to address that, even though we won't be having a board meeting in January, so we will be, and so you'll be getting all that information, and we will be meeting that Wednesday. Thank you, Dennis.
And just so everybody knows, as it's accepted later today, it'll be filed with the state on 12/31, and we'll be in compliance. That's part of the whole process here.
Perfect, thank you. And do you want to go through the consent items
Sure.
quickly?
Okay. For this month, you're gonna see there's what we're calling a ratification. I think it was the day after the board meeting last month. We had a steam pipe break between two of the cottages. We had all faithful going down there and everything. So we haven't had an emergency. You know, usually we get things to the board. So it wasn't, you know, it was 26,000. It wasn't insignificant, but it wasn't a huge one. We go out, we get a few bids, we can right away, we fix it that weekend. So that's on there. We have a couple things, as you're going to see throughout the next probably few months. I know the welding booths are out of bid right now. More, you know, equipment and such that's going to be purchased down there. We have the camera and access controls. Like we've done in new buildings, we want to be able to control the doors so big, and we'll have a number of cameras. These cameras are safety and security to monitor from, they can monitor from the upper campus. So, or from here in Newtown or from the lower campus. So it gives us the ability, a security person to manage that. And then Dennis McCauley can even look from home with that. So, so we'll continue to use cameras as an extra layer of protection here at the college. That's on there. One of the items of equipment that was scoped out as part of the whole equipment process was a plasma cutting table. Actually, I sold one up in Northampton. It's pretty neat, it's pretty big. I'm not sure exactly how it works, but apparently it cuts through metal and everything and such. So that's on there also. And we're going to need computers. We're going to have the classrooms, the seminar rooms and such down there. So we have the computers. They won't be part of our normal computer lease that Brand manages each year. Each year has about a third go back. We'll purchase these and we'll be able to use them a little longer. So there are three of the pieces of equipment for there. Also at our public safety training center, the 5-year lease is up on our Canon copier. This is a state funded lease. So, you know, could we run it another year or two? Yes, but we lose the funding from the state. So we will be diligent. We will roll it over, get a new 5-year lease in there for a copier along the way. And then we have a change order down at the manufacturing training center. Still fits under our budget. We haven't used any contingency there either. And our bid was just a little under. We were asked to look at the sign. President Ganter has asked to look at the sign. I think it's been up in question. The old sign, 16 years old, kind of sits where it sits now, maybe isn't the right spot. So we asked our architects want to look at our sign, look at the design. Is there a better position? And also part of that bid is if we want to move forward, it's already in there. The bidding, they'll manage it along with the engineer needed for that sign along the way. So that's on there also.
Great. Any questions? One of the other things that I neglected to say we'll miss about Dennis is that he thinks ahead of time of expenses we can pay for so that we save a lot of money. We did that with a big chunk of, what was it, on the bond that we paid ahead of time, and we saved lots of money and with this copier. So, Mr. Jordan, we look very forward to you following suit. Thank you very much.
No pressure. No pressure.
Anything else, Ms. Manhurt?
No, that's my license.
Well, this is something that rarely happens, but we have about 12 minutes before we will have our public meeting, so you will have a chance to take a quick break and come back for 11:30. Okay?
What do you think of Hertz versus Trish?
Oh, my God.
Turning stuff
I mean,
into more headaches.
we haven't, we had 3 interceptions or however many it was yet, but the week before, he ran in for 3 incredible game.
We're gonna have that.
He's
okay?
got to settle down and be
We're
consistent,
gonna have
but
that, okay? You know, so we think about Philadelphia. You know,
they turn on a dime.
oh, yeah, they can love you. Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, and guess what? They ain't gonna say you know it. All right, you can't say, you can't tell your team, man, so this is just relax. You don't want them to listen. You turn the radio on. These people are-
What the hell am I on?
All right, what's the matter?
Close.
Yeah.
Hello? Oh, there's nothing. Hello?
Hello? The girl from Dry Dude's in there. Hello?
Hello.
Is anybody else on the line?
I am.
Hello?
Hello? Otto? Hello?
Yes, Otto's
this is-
here. Otto's here.
Oh, can you hear me now, Otto? This is Carol.
I had it muted. Yeah, okay. I can hear you.
All right. I wasn't sure if I was in or not because I didn't hear any other noise going on, so.
Okay, I'm here, yeah.
I think
Yeah.
they
All
turned
right.
off the room mic for while they're on break.
Oh, okay. All right. So who else is on the line then?
Hi, Carol, it's Tom.
I'm
Hi,
John
Tom.
Sprouse.
How are you?
How you doing?
All right. I
Good.
just couldn't get out there in person today, so I'm just going to just try to call in for the public meeting.
I heard hello a couple of times, and I was walking around my family room here. I finally got back to the phone. Yeah, okay.
Well, this is our busy season, and
Right.
we've been very busy. So, thank goodness.
Yeah, I can believe that. Yeah, sure. A lot of
And now
traffic up-
we aren't broadcasting now, are we? Or it's just between us, right?
Yes, as far as I know.
Okay. All
I
right.
think that's right, but you never know.
I know. That's it. But I knew that I got on just as he was saying you were taking a break, so I wanted to make
Good
sure that
timing.
I didn't miss the beginning of it all. Tom, you've been busy?
Yeah, busy time for me. I'm remote because I had cataract surgery yesterday, so I'm
Oh, really?
getting my
Uh-huh.
eyes
Did it-
acclimated to life without glasses again for the first time in about 40 years.
Uh-huh. So it went well for you?
Sing by? One eye?
I have had the second eye done yesterday.
Oh, got
Oh,
you. Okay.
great.
So, and have the post-op as soon as this meeting is done. It's interesting. I feel like I have eyeglasses on, but I don't, and I can see pretty well.
Interesting.
Yes, maybe something I probably
Terrific.
should have done a long time ago.
Very good. Very good. Well, is everybody home for Christmas or are you going away, Tom?
Oh, this is home, and I'm not going anyplace.
Mm-hmm.
Like it that way.
How about Otto? Otto, are you
Yeah.
staying home? Not
Oh,
going to
yeah,
Florida
yeah.
or anything?
No. My Florida family has come up here now, and we had a big gang for Thanksgiving, and at Linda's house over in South Jersey, and then Pamela's up in Holland, and we'll have a family gathering up there. So it's a big gang. Yeah.
Great. That's very good. Well, we're opening the store till 5 o'clock Christmas Eve, so that's where I'll be. Working.
Are you closed
doing
the
any-
following week?
Pardon me?
Are you closed up the following week, or you
No,
open as
we
usual?
open not like probably we'll be closed Monday and we'll be open on Tuesday onward. So, some people still are buying gifts then, and because they've forgotten this one or that one, and that type of thing. So, try to accommodate everybody. Are most of the board present in person?
I think so. When they took the roll call, no, they actually didn't take a roll call. I know of, but I think most of them are there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, they
Yeah.
usually don't do that till the regular board meeting.
Right.
Brodus is there today. And
Really?
it's like, yes, I thought I was trading
Oh.
places with him. But as Otto said, I think about 11 or so of 15 were physically present.
Wow. That's a record for us so far.
Yeah,
Oh.
post-pandemic, correct.
Correct.
Well,
Right?
it's not really post. We're still in something, I guess.
Oh, we still have to be masked. So
Mhm.
that's, I was on the phone yesterday with Ireland with a lot of our vendors, and they're in a full mask mandate until spring of 22, including spring of 22. So they've already, I mean, they haven't let up yet at all, whether you're vaccinated or not.
How about the restaurants in Bristol? Are they reasonably open and are you still there?
Hello, Otto?
Yeah, you still there? I'm just wondering.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Good morning. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Bucks County Community College Board of Trustees. Thank you for attending today, and those of you who are on Zoom, welcome. It's good to have you here. If you could please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Earlier in the day, the Board of Trustees met in executive session to discuss personnel, labor relations, and real estate matters. At this time, the first item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from our November 2021 meeting as presented in your board packet. Is there a motion to accept those minutes? Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you. Any questions, additions, or corrections? If not, all indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. I would like to ask for a roll call at this point, please.
Dave Breidinger.
Here.
Richard Balukas.
Present.
James Stancy.
Here.
Brodus Davis.
Present.
Blake Eisenhart.
Present.
Frank Farry. Carol Ferguson.
Here? Present?
Betsy Feinberg.
Here.
Otto Grubb.
Here.
James Tuda.
Here.
Tom Jennings.
Here.
Bill McLean.
Present.
Linda Manhart.
Present.
Carol Shelley. Here. Phil Worster.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this time, we will open it up for public comment. Is there any public comment this morning? Seeing none, we will move right into my report. Just a couple of quick items that I want to mention. The first one is to say a belated happy Hanukkah to everyone. Merry Christmas to all of you, and happy holiday season to everyone. It's a joyous time of the year, and it comes up very quickly, and it tends to go by very quickly. So please take the time to enjoy your friends and family and make the most of this wonderful season. Second thing I want to do in the spirit of thanks is to say thank you to Christina McGinley and her foundation team for a wonderful reception last evening. Everyone had a great time. The food was terrific, thanks to our catering team who did that. And that was a great night to be able to say thank you to many of our friends and supporters and to be together. It was great to be back together in person and enjoying one another. So thank you very much for that. At this point, I will turn it over to our president, Dr. Ganther, for her report.
Good morning, everyone. Chair Bridinger, Board of Trustees, members of the Executive Cabinet, our Student Government President and Vice President, our faculty chair, and to all those who are in Zoom land joining us. We've been busy, and December has probably been more busy than November because we have lots to celebrate. First of all, I want to thank our culinary program. They prepared and hosted the annual holiday celebration on this week. I want to acknowledge Frank Ferry, Board of Trustee member who was in attendance, but particularly want to thank our faculty chefs, John, Linda, and Michael for their work with that. And sidebar, went in the day before the holiday celebration, and our students and chef were here in the building preparing for next day. And we did a TikTok. It was fun. And it has well over 2,000 views. So we're moving up. We're almost famous. We're almost famous. We're almost famous. I even got the chef to dance. It was exciting. Students have been busy with programs. Matt Cipriano and his team have been hosting events for students to celebrate the holidays. And on the flip side, we know that our students are in need. And so we have hosted the Holiday Helpers event, which allows students to go in and to identify items and gifts that can keep their seasons bright. So we're very excited about that. And we want to thank Samantha Gross and Lynn Bitliff for putting that together. We also had some exciting activities held at Lower and Upper Bucks to support students there. We are currently working on our annual food drive and our Tours for Tots campaign. And so we will be happy to provide, we'll be happy to provide an update in February on the results from those two campaigns. We have expanded the role of our Chief Diversity Officer. And so I would like to share that I have asked him to serve as an External Affairs Officer as well, to work very closely with our legislative arm of our state. And so I'm happy to report that we held an event here with our two state senators, Steve Santasero and Nikki Saval, here dealing with the LGBTQ community and LGBTQ rights. And we also held a presenter on Native American heritage, Gloria Lopez Esquire, who is here to talk about Indigenous people's rights. As it relates to work with our high school partners, would like to send a hearty thank you to Donna Wilkowski and the financial aid team. They have been working very aggressively to support students and families who are in the financial aid pipeline to understand how to secure financial aid funds for the coming year. Long in advance, save the date, but November 5th, 2022, got a year. The foundation's new event, which is celebrating student success. It is going to be a formal gala because we are going to party with a purpose. So for those of you that have iPhones and Androids that go all the way to 2022, please secure Saturday, November 5th. That will be the day that we will be celebrating. We are going to be in session, meaning we will be hosting classes. In fact, we have 55 courses that are going to be offered beginning Monday, December 20th. and that is going to be our winter session. So for those of you who want to get an extra leg up on the spring semester, we will have courses available for students to take. On this past week, I was able to participate in our student jazz concert, which was very lovely. We encourage those to come out for the percussion ensemble, and that will be next Thursday at 7 p.m. January, is an opportunity for us to honor the legacy and the life of Dr. Martin Luther King. And there are two things that I think are important. The first thing is our own Board of Trustee Huda is going to be acknowledged with the Martin Luther King Award in Montgomery County, but we're going to go and support him. So for those of you who would be interested in joining me to support and to cheer on our own trustee, that is going to be Sunday, January the 16th. Did I get that date right, Kathy? I think it's Sunday the 16th. There is going to be a parade at 2 o'clock, and then there's going to be an actual event where Trustee Huda is going to be presenting the award at 4 o'clock. So we will be with him physically, cheering him on for that.
Will that be in Lansdowne? Where's that?
Bluebell.
In Bluebell.
In Bluebell. So we will send out the details for that. And then second, we want to also honor individuals that are in our local community that are living out the legacy of Martin Luther King. And so we are going to honor 4 entities on January 20th with the Dream Builders Award. We will honor a corporate, we will honor a community organization, we will honor a corporate entity, and we will honor a student. And so please lock in your calendars for January the 20th. It will be a ceremony that will last no longer than 60 minutes. That's the exciting part. So, so please mark your calendar for that. I would like to take a few moments of privilege. Our Chief Financial Officer and Vice President of Administrative Services, who has served this institution for 16 years. This is his final Board of Trustees meeting. And for those of you that don't know what he looks like, I'd ask for him to stand at this time.
There you go.
I am grateful for the opportunity and humble for the ability to have him as a part of my initial team in the first year of my presidency. As you all know, Dennis was gearing to retire June 2021. But through the work of this board, and I don't know if it was any arm pulling, but he agreed to stay on until December 2021 in order to allow me an opportunity to get comfortable here. And so I am indebted and grateful for your willingness to extend out your employment for a little old person named Felicia Ganther. So I want to say thank you. And on behalf of the cabinet, we want to thank you for your graciousness and being nice, even when you had to tell us things we didn't want to hear. But we thank you so much for your service to this institution. And we look forward to you being a partner with us in the future. So thank you very much for your work. Simultaneously, we have looked at how do we maintain the high standard of excellence as it relates to our finance and business operations. And as we are journeying through some tough times and identifying the way forward in order to right-size the institution and also to look at ways to grow the institution, after great consultation with Chair Bridinger and with our finance chair, Manhurst, I recommended that we maintain an internal individual to serve as an interim. And so I'd like to formally introduce David Jurden. David, you could stand too. David Jurden has been with the institution, is it 14 years? 15 years, look at that. 15 years and has served in the comptroller and the assistant vice president's role. He will assume the role of interim chief financial officer. I am sure that his beautiful brown coiffed hair is going to turn gray. I'm working with me. But nonetheless, I'm thankful that he agreed to serve in this capacity as we find our way forward over the next year and a half. Next to him is Frank Moore. Frank Moore is no stranger to how, you can stand up too. Frank Moore is no stranger to finance and business. We are fortunate to steal him from East Stroudsburg. He was serving as the interim vice president of administrative services there, as they are looking to fill the role of president, and the current interim president was the chief financial officer. And so he tapped Frank to serve, and we tapped Frank to say, don't you want to just have like a 10 to 25-minute drive to work? And he said, of course I do. So he will be serving as our comptroller, working very closely with David, and also working closely with our financial consultant, Tony Askey. So this will be our financial leaders over the next year and a half as we navigate through. So I want to say thank you to Dennis and want to say welcome to our new financial team.
Welcome.
I know that there's going to be some presentations that are going to happen a little bit later, but I do want to acknowledge Bill Hemming. One of the things that I have always wanted in my entire whole life, I know I'm making that part up, but I've been a finalist, a bellwether finalist 4 times, and I never ever clinched the actual bellwether award. So I want to just say that I'm super excited. We have a team that they're going to present. You guys are presenting, right?
Yes.
Okay, so they're going to tell you what they've done, but I am super excited that we have a team that are finalists that will be going forward to present, and I hope that they will finally clinch that position of bellwether recipient and bring home the win at Bucks County Community College. So thank you, Dean Hemming, for your leadership in that area. Finally, 2 things. One, I'm going to take a vacation. And so the final major thing that Dennis Matthews has to do is serve as interim president for a week. So next week, I will be gone. I'm going to the happiest place on earth for my birthday. So if any of you need anything, don't call me, call Dennis or Lisa, our provost, and they'd be happy to help you. And at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Provost Angelo so she can introduce our new faculty.
Thank you, Dr. Hamper. I'm actually going to ask Dr. Dakia Smith, our Dean of Students, to introduce our new faculty.
Good morning, Chairman Bridinger, President Ganther, and district board members. I'm here to introduce Anne Maria Juices. I always get it wrong. Dragustis, who is our new full-time faculty counselor. And I'll just give you a quick little background about her. Actually, Anna Maria started her education at a community college. She attended Mercer County Community College, and she has her BA in linguistics and communication disorders from CUNY College. She has her master's in counseling and personnel services from Fordham University. I will admit I'm a little jealous. I wanted to go to Fordham, and my parents did not let me, so congratulations. And she also has a professional counselor certificate from Georgia Court University. Anna Maria spent the last 16 years at Valley Day School in Morrisville, where she served as a school guidance counselor, where she was also a case manager for emotionally disturbed high school students. She was a liaison between parents, students, faculty, and teachers, outside agencies, homeschool districts, and provided not only individual, but also group counseling for students. She was a member of the Student Assistance Program and conducted weekly group sessions with the students, where she focused a lot on mindfulness, anger management, nonverbal communication, emotional management, and digital citizenship. Lastly, and I don't want to say most importantly, but one of the reasons why we really loved to bring on Anna Maria, we have seen a shift in our student population. We have seen a shift in the need to serve them. One of our focus areas for the strategic plan is on student risk, and Anna Maria is trained in the sanctuary model. And the sanctuary model is really a blueprint for clinical and organizational change for individuals who have experienced high levels of trauma. And so as we are really kind of still in the midst of this pandemic, trying to get out of it hopefully soon, really seeing an increase in students that are really experiencing first-degree trauma, secondary vicarious trauma. It's really important that we have somebody on staff that is already trained and able to jump in. I think your first week you had a crisis walk in and she was the only one that was available, and I was like, well, you're on. And she did a beautiful job. And so we felt very strongly that after having that experience that we picked the right person to join our team. So Maria.
That concludes my report, Jim.
Thank you, Dr. Ganther. With that, we'll move into our committee reports. First, our Student Affairs and Student Engagement Committee report, Dr. Davis.
Yes, we have with us today that's going to be talking about student government fall update, Nicholas Barubi and Latifi Adawar.
Hey, good morning, Mr. Chairman, Dr. Ganther, Trustees. My name is Nicholas Barubi. I'm here with my Vice President, Tifa Adewale, to talk about the SGA for this semester and our visions going forward in the next semester. Do I have this? Okay, great. All right, so we've been busy pretty much every month, making sure that we have consistent meetings with ourselves and other members that were elected to their respective positions. We've been fortunate enough to have a couple students on campus show interest who have been regulars to our meetings and really help us support any goals that we've had and offer their own voices to the student population needs that we have. We've been utilizing the student activities room, which was for the most part vacant from club activities, not only because of COVID, but because a lot of the clubs have found other spaces on campus for the time being. So we've been luckily able to repurpose that for our own purposes, as well as looking to make that space as good as possible, which I'll go into more a little bit later. We've been having all of our meetings as hybrid meetings so that those of us who have been able to meet on campus are able to do so. And we're also having all of the meetings on Zoom for a couple of our members, one in particular, Seth, who is our Lower Bucks campus representative, who usually joins us via Zoom. We have been, as I mentioned, able to have a couple students who have shown their interest in SGA, so we've been able to fill positions there. And we were fortunate enough to sit down, T and I, with Dr. Ganther and talk about the current state of affairs and what our vision is going forward. We've also been able to sit down with the President's Fellow and recent alumni, Erin Bader, to talk about her experiences as an alumni. And she has been very willing to show up to our meetings and give her feedback, as well as give information that she has about the student room that we've been meeting in. We were also fortunate enough, again, T and I, to meet with Dr. McCormick from Middle States and represent the school, talking about our experiences with our staff, with our teachers, and how activity is and how affairs are normally handled on campus. We look forward to meeting with him again when they visit next semester. All right, so for this past semester, we were really going back into full force and making sure that we were as active and as engaged with the student population as possible. All of these events were very successful, had great turnouts. So for the Welcome Week events, we had a lot of stations set up, and we made sure to show face and be active and introducing ourselves to anyone who approached us, and engaging with a couple people who showed their interest for next semester, and also joining as general members or other positions that are available. Other events that we've had include our fall festival, and most recently our winter festival. A lot of really great turnout for all of those events. Probably the most accomplished thing that we've had this semester is that SGA pumpkin over there I did myself. So for new student organizations, you see a list there. We have quite a lot this semester with students coming back on campus, which has been really great. And we've been working to help to promote their activities on campus and their membership, as well as approving any constitutions that they've brought forward and other current student organizations have, so that they can go about their business to whatever their own vision is for their. So in most of our major talks, one thing that we've looked at is the Rollins 111 room, which is right across from where the cafeteria is. That's the student clubs and activities room. One thing that the two of us noticed going into that room in the beginning of the semester is that it's a great room with a lot of potential that we'd love to see be as good as possible. And we're still very much so in the beginning phases of what we've been conceptualizing there, but really what we hope is to make that a place of a lot of activity and foot traffic, and bring as much attention to the clubs as possible to that space, and make it as friendly to the clubs as possible, so they can have meetings and activities there with their members. So we've started to brainstorm some ideas for that. We've started some discussions. We brought that up in our discussions with Dr. Ganther. We've talked about with Matt Cipriano and other clubs on campus who share that like mind and would also be interested in helping out in any way that they could. So we have next steps going forward to develop that a little bit more solidly next semester and see where we can go from there. So some areas of focus that we have looking towards the future. We want to continue helping student clubs and organizations as much as possible with any events that they have, and especially with recruitment. And we also want to be as active as possible with the Office of Student Life, as we have been this past semester, and their events that they've had for different seasons, and just to help a couple of those which were mentioned with guest speakers to help bring awareness to clubs and activities on campus. We also want to help, even though hopefully we're off Zoom classes for the better for the future, we still want to utilize Bucks Plus as much as possible, which we've been promoting to the clubs to help engage with their members and to help maintain a regular amount of activity, even though some people are not able to meet on campus, so to make that an easier situation for them. So we hope to continue doing that with Bucks Plus, as well as recruitment on our own end. A couple of our members are graduating at the end of this semester, so we hope to continue to find people who are active and interested students on campus to help with our ideas and goals. Luckily, even after the spring semester ends, where I will be graduating, Latifa will continue on, so I have full faith that we will have a good continued on mindset into the future, even well into 2022 and 2023. So we would also, as I said, continue to work with student organizations, helping to develop their constitutions to meet their current needs. So one of the previous projects that was done by an SGA was creating charging stations around campus. One thing that we would like to do is to just take a look at those. Obviously, technology ages quite rapidly these days, so these are things that are not always maintained to keep up with those advancements and improvements. So we would like to go around and survey some of those stations and see how effective they are with the technology we have now, see if there's anything that we can do to help make those more useful with the devices that we have, and see what it would take to make those beneficial for the students on campus, since so many of us do rely on our technology for classes as well. And we would like you with the student organizations, particularly with recruitment, as I said, and going forward with the Rollins 111, see what we need to get approval for different things that are within our scope to help make that room the best that it can be. And after that, we're just looking forward to the election, to the fall 22 and spring 23 semesters, so that we can have continued service from the student body. Is everything?
Yeah.
Questions? In regard to the election, what are some of the officers?
So right now we have
The question. I'm so sorry, could you repeat the question?
In terms of your election, you have upcoming, what officers are you looking for?
So right now, we're looking for, we have a president, a vice president, we have representatives from both of the campuses. We're still looking for a secretary and treasurer to help us out. One of our general members is leaving us and graduating. So we have a couple of more tertiary roles, such as we also have the student representative for the direction of diversity and inclusion, which we'd really like to see filled for next semester. So we got a couple of those roles that we're looking to fill still for next semester. And then one thing going forward into elections in the future is not only we would like to make sure that marketing for the next election is as spread out as possible, because sometimes these elections come up without all the students even being aware that that's happening. But also one thing that we've noticed along the way is that there are also some technological issues that we've encountered with the elections, in making sure that the platform is open at the scheduled time, and making sure that that's also accessible on all devices, because we've also found that sometimes that site is only accessible through Windows or certain browsers. So we're also trying to make sure and troubleshoot for the next election and make sure that that's accessible and marketed as possible. Thank you.
Nicholas and Latifa, thank you for your leadership. We appreciate it very much. And this is an important part of what we do here on campus. And it's tough during a pandemic to really energize individuals. And it looks like you're doing a great job in doing that. So continue to do that great work. Thank you. Davis?
Yes. we have Dr. Marie McCarthy, who will provide some information on access mission review.
Morning, everyone. As you may be aware, each semester we look at a dimension of our mission. Okay. A dimension of our mission and how we are fulfilling that component of our mission. We've been doing this at Bucks since I think 2010, possibly before then, well before my time. And with this round of mission reviews, we've decided to kind of revise the process a little bit and focus in on a specific unexamined data, questions, issues, concerns related to that dimension of our mission. So this semester, we were looking at access to higher education as part of our mission and decided to focus specifically on access for historically underrepresented racial, ethnic, and socioeconomic groups. And as we look at this data, just by way of context, what we're seeing in a lot of these data are the impact of institutional and structural racism, both historically and today, affecting access to quality education and socioeconomic resources. So just to keep that in mind. So specifically, starting with underrepresented racial and ethnic groups, we're looking at students who are Black, Latinx, Native American, or who identify with 2 or more racial or ethnic groups. We look first at our credit enrollment to see, are we in fact reaching students from these underrepresented groups? And what you can see on this slide is, first of all, that the vast majority of our students identify as white. And fewer than 30% of our students are students of color. You can see that that's pretty consistent over the semester represented here. Among students of color, the largest groups of students identify as either Hispanic or Latinx or Black or African American. We look specifically at enrollment in credit programs among folks who reside in Bucks County to see what is our market share of each population. So each line there represents a particular group identified at the top of the graph, and the lowest line at the bottom, the gray line, represents our market share of the white residents of Bucks County. So fewer than 1% of that population is enrolled in a credit program at Bucks in each of these semesters. The remainder of the lines on the graph represent communities of color in Bucks County. And so one of the things that we see is that our market share in communities of color in Bucks County is higher than our market share in white communities. We also looked at the student body coming from historically underrepresented racial and ethnic groups. So we did find some differences between those students and other students at Bucks. So students in these groups are more likely to be of non-traditional age, so age 25 or older. They're more likely to be enrolled part-time. They're slightly more likely to be female. They're more likely to receive Pell Grant funding, and that's particularly true for our Black students. And they're more likely to need developmental education, particularly in math and writing. We then look to see the extent to which students in historically underrepresented groups stay at Bucks once they get here. So this graph looks at attrition from fall to fall. So when we look at students who are here, say fall of 18, are they still here fall of 19? Or the green bar, fall of 19, are they still here fall of 20? We've taken out all the students who transferred into a four-year school, all the students who graduated. And what we see is that we lose a higher proportion of students who identify as Native American, Black, Latinx, and with more than one racial or ethnic group. Our attrition rates are higher for those populations. We looked at access to completion. To what extent are students achieving the certificate or the degree that they're seeking when they come to Bucks? And we looked at it at 3 time periods. So the different colors represent different time periods in this graph. So the green bar is students who complete in normal time. This is kind of iPads speak. Normal time would be 2 years for an associate's degree. The red bar is students who complete within 150% of normal time, that's 3 years for an associate's degree. And the orange bar is students who complete within 200% of normal time, or 4 years for an associate's degree. As you would expect, the longer the time period we look at, the higher the proportion of students who actually complete their programs. But in addition to that, what we see is that completion rates are not as high for our students who identify as Black, Hispanic, or Latinx, or with what in the state is a category called other, which includes Native American students and students identifying as remote ethnic groups. This is looking specifically at a cohort of full-time students. We also looked at part-time students, and we looked at just the 200% completion rates since they are part-time. So that's an associate's degree within 4 years. And we see here again that completion rates are lower for Black and Latinx students than for other groups of students. We have seen some increases for Black students in recent years. We then looked at, or tried to look at, what kinds of experiences are students of color having at Bucks. And what we discovered is that we don't really know for sure. We can speculate, but we don't have clear data telling us what kinds of experiences our students of color are having. For those of you who remember when Pearl S. Buck came to Bucks and did a climate study in 2019, one of the things that they recommended was a climate survey of our students. And so that's something that's being discussed. We can look at other student survey data and try to extrapolate what the climate is like. And so I did include a little bit of survey data there from SESI, which we last did in 2018. That shows, we're not seeing significant differences by race and ethnicity in the proportion of students who report that they feel welcome and respected at Bucks. However, that survey and those surveys in general are not intended to be climate surveys. So we really need to do a climate survey that dives into what kinds of experiences our students are having at Bucks. We also, as I said, looked at historically underrepresented socioeconomic groups. So these are students who are living in poverty or with limited economic resources. This is some data that we gathered about the county as a whole. The green map is showing you the proportion of the population living in poverty level in each zip code in Bucks County. And the darker shaded zip codes are the ones that have the higher poverty rates. The blue map in the middle is looking at median income by zip code. And in this case, the darker shaded zip codes are those that have lower median incomes. So you can see kind of where we have some concentrations of poverty and lower income by the darker colors in those two maps. The orange map then is our market share for our credit programs at Bucks by zip code. And the darker colors here represent a higher market share. So we do have higher market share in some of the zip codes that have higher socioeconomic need, but the pattern doesn't map one-to-one. And of course, when we're thinking about access for students with limited socioeconomic resources, what that comes down to in many ways is often how much does it cost to come to Bucks. So we looked at all of the community colleges in Pennsylvania. This is for academic year 2020, looking just at their in-district tuition and fees. And we found that Bucks is the 5th cheapest community college in the state of Pennsylvania. And so we certainly are, in terms of providing access for folks with limited socioeconomic resources, we're on the half a graph that we would want to be on. We also looked at where do we fall compared to Apache schools, and as we would hope, the cost of attending Bucks is less than half the cost of attending the cheapest Apache school. So we are offering students a more affordable option. In terms of data about students' socioeconomic status, what we have is a little bit limited, but we did do a survey in fall of 2019, looking at student experiences for food insecurity, housing insecurity, and homelessness. And what we found in that survey is that overall, more than half of our students had experienced one of those things in the last year. So we definitely are reaching students who have significant socioeconomic needs. So in conclusion, some of the key points and takeaways for us, having done this mission review, is that yes, we are reaching communities of color, historically underrepresented communities, but there's definitely room for us to do more. To get them here, to keep them here, and to ensure that they achieve the credential that they came to get. We do have some areas where we need a little bit more data. Our data about race ethnicity for our non-credit students is limited, so we're looking into that. In addition, we know some of the characteristics of the students at Bucks who come from historically underrepresented groups, and those are things that we can then keep in mind in terms of providing appropriate services. We know we have attrition issues, we already talked about that. Completion rates as well. We know completion rates are lower for some of our students who come from historically underrepresented groups, so that's an issue that we need to look at. And we need data about what our student experiences are for our students of color. So we need to do some type of climate survey so we can understand the kinds of experiences they're having. Any questions?
Yes, I have a question. I'm a little confused about the underlying notion that we have historically underrepresented students, when in fact the data we've seen from our DEI leader, we map exactly with the complexion of the county. What are we looking for?
I think that with our mission being providing access to folks who may not otherwise have access to higher education, we're looking at populations that historically have lacked access. And yes, we absolutely are reaching those populations in Bucks County. The idea is maybe we could do more. Maybe we could help more of them.
Let me just add, so the data that I provide about the workforce demographic, not student demographic. So workforce, we do here with the county, but that data that I provided didn't go into what the student demographic makeup looks like here in comparison to the county.
Dr. Ganther, that was some excellent data that you just heard. Is there any way down the line in terms of we can find out the why nots? Because you mentioned that a lot in your presentation, especially in to tie in from a statistical standpoint, those areas to local school districts, if you follow what I'm saying.
Yes, I follow.
If the Pearl Buck folks recommended that we do a survey 2 years ago, I think it's something we should do.
Quickly. That's good.
Any other questions for Dr. McCarthy? Not, thank you for that presentation, and thank you, Dr. Davis. Next, we have the Academic Affairs and Workforce Development Committee. Ms. Shelley?
Thank you. We're going to call on Bill Hemmig to talk about Bellwether Award nominated project.
Thank you. This is kind of a nice segue from Maureen's presentation. Good morning. Thank you for this opportunity to present briefly about the Bellwether Award. As you may have gathered from President Ganther's unbridled enthusiasm, Bellwether is one of the leading excellence awards specifically for community colleges, and a great deal of prestige comes with the award. In addition to President Ganther's previous not quite making it, Bucks has also been in the finals before for other initiatives and has not won, so the pressure is on. There are 30 finalists in 10 in each of 3 categories. We are in the instructional programs and services category, which is on the far right. And also the print's kind of small, but if you can scour all 3 lists, you'll find no other Pennsylvania community colleges anywhere on this slide. So there will be a team of 4 of us, faculty members Stacy Bennett, Nick Ioria, and Regina Hierholzer, as well as myself, who will be traveling to San Antonio to compete in the finals. So what got us here? This time it's our Open Educational Resources and Zero Textbook Cost Initiative. Now, lots of community colleges are doing OER now. What makes our program stand out and got us to this special recognition? I think it's because we do it right. As you can see on this slide, we're providing stipends to faculty to redesign entire online course templates to incorporate OER and other free to students resources. They follow a detailed work timeline with complete support from learning resources, librarians, and instructional designers. And when the templates are completed, they're made available for other faculty who teach those courses to adopt, both at Bucks and beyond Bucks. Because everything's under a Creative Commons license, people at other institutions can adopt them and edit them to suit their own needs. Another feather in our cap, we just established what I believe is the first zero textbook cost program pathway in Pennsylvania. Students enrolling in our meeting, convention, and event planning certificate program can get through the entire program with no required textbook costs, which makes that program that much more accessible to a broader range of students who might otherwise be financially strapped. And it's an important growing area of the region. I would add that although I am more or less still the celebrity spokesmodel for the initiative, this initiative really and truly belongs to the 85 of our faculty who are right now teaching with OER, and the librarians and the instructional designers who support them, who are currently saving our students over $500,000 a year in potential textbook costs. And that, I think, is why they're competing in San Antonio at the end of the month. So thank you, wish us luck, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Hemming?
Would you say you could just take a moment to elaborate on? Yes, thank you, good question. I mentioned Creative Commons licensing a moment ago. Actually all OERs have Creative Commons licenses, which reduces the restrictions that normal copyright would impose on a resource. So when a faculty member adopts an OER, they can give copies to their students, which they normally with a copyrighted material, it's a no-no. They can edit it, they can take out chapters and use only the chapters they want, or they can adopt 2 or 3 OER textbooks and say, I like this chapter from here, and this chapter from here, and this chapter from here, and put them together and create their own textbook. And as long as they attribute the original creators of the materials, they can do anything. And the students too, and it's something our faculty have started to play with. Students can create. I know there's a professor in New Hampshire, I think, at a community college who teaches early American literature, and since none of that's under copyright, she had her students make a textbook. They put in the pieces, they wrote the introductions, they created the test, the whole 9 yards. So it's really exciting. Thank you.
Congratulations on becoming a finalist and good luck.
So I don't have a question for you, Mr. Hemming, but I do have a question for Dr. Ganther. At the beginning of the meeting, you told us that you did a TikTok video.
Yes.
With the culinary folks dancing.
Yes.
What are you prepared to do in the event that the team brings back a bellwether?
We're gonna have a parade.
Thank you, Mr. Hemming. Next, we'll move into our consent agenda items. All action items are on the consent agenda. If any trustees would like to discuss an item, you may now request that. The action will be removed from the consent agenda, and we will act on that separately. Is anyone requesting that an item be removed from the consent agenda? If not, I will ask Ms. Manhertz if she will take us through the consent agenda.
Certainly, thank you. I would like to move that the Board of Trustees approve the listed ratification of emergency services, which was to fix the steam pipe between cottage 1 and 2. Other contracts, which include for the CAT building, the cameras, installation, plasma cutting table, and computers. And also the replacement of the copier for public safety. In addition, approval for new programs, which include the architectural services, the change order for the architectural services for the new sign. And also approval for the new academic programs as previously presented. And finally, for the acceptance of fiscal year 2020 to 2021 audit as we reviewed. So.
Is there a second? Thank you. Any questions on the consent agenda? If not, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Ms. Mehrhertz. That brings us to the final item on the agenda today, and that is board comment. Is there any board comment today? Yes, Mr. Eisenhart.
As I mentioned this morning, Senator Robert Dole, I thought it'd be appropriate to recognize that the senator did visit the campus in the 90s. And he was here and he spoke to the students in the community. I think we all know that he was a man of integrity and honor, patriotism, and humor. And I thought that it was just important to recognize the values that he has displayed and the challenges that we're facing today. One of his primary tenets was that the opposing party is not the enemy. He was a complete advocate for bipartisan legislative action. He worked for bipartisan legislation, and people may not realize that he was very modest. And if you'd ever ask him how he was, he would say fine, and he would immediately want to know how you are and what are the issues you're facing, and want to know more about you and your activities and that type of thing. So he's very outgoing and always very helpful. And I don't think people realize that he was a mentor and advisor to both Democrats and Republicans in the United States Senate. In fact, he recognized Harry Reid when Reid was ultimately the senator from Nevada. When he was first elected to the House of Representatives, Bob Dole saw him out and became his mentor and advisor all the way through the time that Harry was able to be the majority leader in the Senate. So I think that the fact that the nation honors this gentleman, that he did have a presence, he knew of Bucks County, he was able to speak to our students. He was an outstanding example for us to continue to follow.
Thank you for that tribute, Mr. Eisenhart. Thank you very much. Any other board comment today?
Dave, it's Frank Ferry on the phone. I just wanted to, I came in a few minutes late, so I just wanted to make sure you guys got me.
We got you. Thank you.
Thank you, folks.
With that, before we adjourn, I would like to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and may you have a wonderful New Year. I look forward to getting together with you next year in the new year. And I want to say in closing, it is a pleasure to serve with all of you on this board. Appreciate the way that we do work together as a group very well. So thank you for that. And with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Second. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Thank you. Meeting is adjourned.